All right, so we just said that we're going to try and simulate these two streams, right? The system.in and system.out. Right? We're going to trying to replace them, right? So that we won't actually need folks to interact with this. And so the act of replacing or simulating with the intention of being able to test something, right? We refer to it as mocking, right? To mock something. Yes? Right, we're going to, as if they were true, but it's not, right? It's a fake implementation. It's not really the console, but I want it to behave as if it was the console, to all purpose, right? Yeah. So the so what we're going to be able to do is that we're going to create our own streams, right? Now streams. The names that we use for streams, input stream, output stream, the intention of using streams as the theme, it tries to connotate the idea that data is flowing right from one direction to another direction, yes, and that and that on one side you are producing this data, and on the other side you're consuming that data, yes. And there's perhaps some lag of time between when the data is being produced and when it's being consumed, right? To try and connotate that kind of vision. And so what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to create our own streams, right? And we're going to try and mock the real implementation with our own implementation, right? So we're going to be mocking these, right? So that it's going to allow us to test this without the human intervention. So we know that that input stream is the interface for our system.in. Right? We know that system.in implements that interface. Yes, but we know that many other classes also implement that interface. Yes, not only just system.in. There's quite a few other ones that are string-based implementations that also implement that same interface. Right. So one of them is, for instance, the byte array input stream, right? That allows us to convert a set of bytes into a stream, right? We can give it a string, right? An actual literal string, right? And then convert it into bytes, and then this byte array, right, is going to be able to sequence those bytes, right? So to be consumed by somebody who is going to read. In this case, the scanner is the one who's going to be consuming this. Yes. The scanner, as long as you give it a string of bytes, it's going to read these bytes, and it's going to try to convert them into integers, floats, strings, characters, into a high-level data type. Yes? Right? As long as we can generate this stream of bytes, the scanner doesn't really care where it comes from, whether it comes from the console, from human beings typing this, or some byte array that is being produced. It will consume it. Yes? So indeed, we're going to be using for our input, we're going to be using this convenient class called the byte array input stream that conveniently allows us to use a high-level literal string, right, and convert it into this stream. Make sense? Right. So this is how we're going to simulate. This is how we're going to mock our input stream. Yes. So we're going to mock the system.in. Right. So we're not going to be using system.in anymore. Instead, we're going to be using this byte array. Right, so that we can remove the user from the input side of the equation, right? For the output, we can go the other way around, right? We can use a byte array output stream, right? That just like the byte array input stream, right, can consume data, right, and generate from a string, can generate a stream of characters, of bytes. The print can go the other way around, right? It can consume a set of bytes, right, and reconstruct a string for us that we can then just maybe print or display or maybe compare against an expected value, right? We can look at the actual value that the algorithm is spitting out, and then maybe compare it to an expected value. That 2 + 2 is indeed 4, right? If I send in 2 space 2. That the algorithm actually adds them, right? And then the output comes back as a 4, and then I can compare it against the expected value. So here's our out. Our out, if we remember, in the input was of type input stream. The output, right, of system.out is of type print stream, and we can write it in terms of bytes that is going to be are going to be consumed by print stream and generate for us an instance that we can then convert back from the byte, right? We can convert it back into a string so that we really don't want to deal with bytes, right? So we convert it back into a high-level string, so we can actually print it out for our tests, right? Or we can actually compare it against an expected string, right? So yeah, there it is. So we create the output stream. We're going to pass this out, right? Instead of passing system.in and system.out, we'll pass these in and this out, right? The in is going to have the values 3 space 4, and whereas the out, when we pass it in, the add is going to write the result of 3 plus 4. We'll write a 7, right, into this output stream, but instead of showing up in the console, it'll show up here in my out, which I'll then have to convert it back into a string. Make sense? All right. So in this case, having these two in and out, we're now full circle, right? We can now throw away system.in, we can throw away system.out, not have to deal with the console at all, right? And no human intervention, no humans required. Where we can send across the 3 and the 4, right? And this will replace or will play the role of somebody actually typing 3 space 4 at the console, right? And then we'll also generate out, right? And this is where the output of our calculator is going to be written to, right? Our output from the calculator will be written to here. We pass in both the in and out, right? We pass the in and out for the controller. It's just expecting input stream. It's just expecting print writer, yes? So instead of using system.in and system.out, it'll read from this input and it will write into this output. We run it and we convert the output. We convert the output, the bytes that come back. We convert it back into a string so that we can compare it against the expected result. Hopefully, what came out from the out is a few bytes that represent the character 7, right, or the string 7, and then compare it against that. Indeed, 3 plus 4 is 7, right? Again, the intention here was to, the idea of mocking, right, of being able to replace a system that we don't really care about. We don't really care about the humans. Right, we want to be able to simulate them so that we can run these tests independently of any particular layer, right? If this were the database, we would be mocking the database. If this were a network, we would be mocking the network, right? If this were the file system, we would be mocking the file system. In this case, we're mocking the human being, right? That's part of this loop. Okay. All right. Excellent. Right. This seems somewhat complicated, right? I mean, if you look at this test, half of it, half of this test deals with setting up all these input streams and this output stream, right? Which is mostly we not really care about that, right? Ideally, we could abstract this out and it says, well, I don't want to really have to set up this, right? It's just so much boilerplate stuff here, right? That I need to set up these bytes and these arrays and these strings and convert back. That's just way too much detail, right? Isn't there a simpler or more cleaner way that I can use without having to mock with have to deal with all these low-level byte arrays and whatnot? Yeah. So it's needlessly complicated, right? This in particular because we chose these particular interfaces. We chose the byte array, right? We chose those interfaces for implementation, and they need to do all this conversion, right, between bytes and arrays and strings and whatnot, and so it just adds more complication, right? And as opposed to just using system.in and system.out, right? Those are already set up to work nicely, and we already understand what they do, right? We don't even have to think about it, right? So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to say, well, can't we use something that looks a little more natural, right, than dealing with these bytes and these arrays and whatnot? So we're going to revisit this. It says we're not going to use these interfaces that we chose originally, the byte array input stream and byte array output stream, right? Instead, we're going to use something that looks a little bit cleaner, right? Let's fix the data types that we chose.